Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We had a little delay in starting the finance meeting of June 26th. And I'm gonna go ahead and call the roll so that we know who's with us. Laura Bedford is on the field. Paulette Burdick,
Here.
Tony Burrows here. Cookie Courier. David Cornez.
Here.
Richard Handelsman.
Present.
Suzanne Saramac. Julia Silviger. And Michael Zaslow.
Here.
And we've got one. Do us, Jerry Swansky,
Right here.
Stuart Richland,
No.
Kelly Jensen, Dominic Granagio.
I keep going out for blood.
Patricia Caputo, David Boaz.
Yes.
I'm here, and Pastor Pembroke, present, so. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Laurie.
You all got my very rudimentary agenda.
Yes.
Did you? Oh, I'm sorry.
I have a question about quorum. Am I correct in saying that officers are not counted for quorum?
Yeah, there, except I am.
Hello, everyone.
Where I am,
Right.
we have five members here and 4 absent.
Okay, so
Sorry, but it's a very rudimentary agenda. But if you could take a look at the minutes while we're discussing, I would be happy to entertain a motion.
Sorry, David. Should have sent one over to you.
Sorry. Okay, anyone wanna do a motion to accept the minutes as presented? Michael, would you do the minutes for me?
I'll second.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. There's one little housekeeping matter I want to get to. I have scheduled 2 town hall meetings for our budget process. I want to start to get back to that where we go out. We go out to the clubhouse, invite everyone that wants to come to review a proposed budget. And talk about the things that the community would like to see done and what UCO can do for the community and, you know, just sort of take suggestions and then take that information to the relevant committees that would be voting on whatever it is that might be relevant, so that we can then get it into a really robust budget package that we put together. Because our mandate is at the October Delegate Assembly to present our proposed budget to the delegates. I want it to be truly representative of what the membership of UCO, which is all of the associations and their members, want us to do, and that they understand what we're doing. So the first meeting is going to be more of a meet and greet and show them a format, etc. And that's going to be July 17th at 1:30 in meeting room C at the clubhouse. And I'll be getting out announcements about this. I just wanted to bring it to the committee first and see if anybody had any specific information or objections or.
What day of the week
is it? It's Wednesday. Okay, so Wednesday, just for your reference, I picked the Wednesday before the finance committee meeting in July. That way I thought we would gather some information from our constituents, bring it here to the table and see where do we go?
The third Wednesday of the month.
Yes, yeah.
I will not be there.
Oh, okay, you have a,
I have a meeting, we have my time.
oh, okay.
What is that meeting going to be called?
It's gonna be called Hugo Budget Town Hall Meeting. You'll see that in the release. And then the second one is gonna be August 21st. And again, it's the Wednesday prior to the Finance Committee meeting for August.
Same
That's-
place, same.
Same thing,
Yeah.
1:30, meeting room C at the clubhouse.
21st?
21st. And then on the 28th, we should have a pretty good feel for what to instruct our accounting folks to do about a proposed budget. And that way in September, it will be officially voted on by the committees prior to going to the delegate assembly. I want that,
Executive board, then they'll have some.
Right. Right. And there may be other committees that,
Yeah.
depending on what we come up with, I mean, you never know,
We normally publish it in the paper.
well, the final version will be in the paper.
Oh, yeah,
So that's why I want it in
that's-
September.
If you wanna put the meetings in, you have to.
Oh,
tell
no, that, yeah,
prior-
the actual budget itself, do we put it in the paper?
Oh, good, yeah, the budget.
The actual budget itself?
And I don't remember, it's been so long.
Yeah, I know, I don't think the last few years,
Want to.
but we're definitely gonna distribute it electronically, we're gonna have copies here, I mean, before, the delegates have to have it.
Well, then.
They have to
Normally, the
have-
delegates, right, they're supposed to have it, I think,
10 days.
10 days prior, that's why if you put it into the paper comes out like a week, usually a week before, under
Yeah.
normal circumstances.
I would like to really give them a month,
Well,
truthfully.
You can publish the August meeting, you can't do the July because.
No, it's July, yeah, and then, we'll
But you
get
can
that
do
out.
that if you just
Yeah.
send it to me and I'll find a space.
Oh, absolutely. But that's my housekeeping part of my agenda.
So it'll just be a meet and greet and community feedback on the proposed budget?
Yes, what I'm gonna do is present the current budget and go through the current budget and where we are, item by item. This is gonna be a slogging through meeting.
I'm sure there will also be a wish list of what
And
people want.
As we go through, we're gonna be taking notes of, when we look at last year's budget, where we are this year. The suggestion for next year and any additional items that are not in our budget at the moment. That's really what I'm gonna invite. So I don't know what kind of Pandora's box I'm opening, but we'll find out all together. But I think the last few years have not been that way. And I like fresh air, I like openness and just let everybody have their say, because when it comes down to it, this committee is gonna make its mind up what it wants to really do, So. Richard?
Speaking of Pandora's box, how about bus shelters at the bus stops?
That would be an item to bring up in this meeting. We can add individual items at that meeting that would then go to the transportation committee. That's if it's a bus
And any infrastructure.
and infrastructure, that's where we're gonna decide how, we're an advisory committee. We're not doing anything, we're advising other people what suggestions have come up and.
I have a question. How many of them are you gonna put up?
That's, I don't know how many there are.
There's 163 plus bus stops, you're gonna put a
How
cap
you
in
gonna create a
also.
budget, how you gonna create a budget, I'll start this, how you gonna create a budget line? Just by talking about it at a budget meeting, it needs to go to the requisite committees first. They
Right,
need to go out and do a survey
right,
and
Yeah.
and go out and get pricing
Right,
and then bring it up the line.
right, we as a committee need to see, I believe. If the general populace out there wants the
Yeah.
community to further a project of that nature. And that's great, then we advise the relevant committees that we're open to going forward to look into things and then bring us back that information. Am I right? Am I?
Yes,
going
you're
down the
absolutely
right
right. It belongs in two requisite committees, that would be transportation and
Bids.
infrastructure.
Right,
And then once an actual number is arrived at, then it would be to the budget committee. The budget committee can decide whether to create a line for that, put it in the budget.
come up with a plan and create if we need a line or if it's just something to be added. So,
Something to look at.
okay, it's a great example of where I think I would like to see this committee headed, as a truly advisory committee. So that's,
Carolyn,
no, I'm Joanne.
could I ask, I'm sorry, Joanne, could I ask just one question pertinent to the budget? Prior to the meeting, can we get a best estimate of when we're going to be able to work on dredging of the North Canal? And there's going to be, major budget hit whenever we do dredge that canal.
Okay.
And if we start talking about it at that meeting,
Yes,
it would be advantageous to give them an idea or an estimate of what the impact is and the timing of it. I think it's one of those things where, once people really sit down and think about it, we really have to take that on when we get the opportunity to, once we get through ownership issues with.
no, I absolutely understand your concern and your question, and it is certainly a major issue to be looked at. My personal advice is gonna be that in the 2025 budget, we allocate some funds, which hopefully by that meeting, we have an estimate of the funds necessary to do an engineering study of the canal. Because that will give us much the same as we have been doing with the South Canal.
So the number for the engineering study is roughly known. We just paid $20K to do an engineering study on South Canal.
Exactly.
I don't think it's unreasonable to assume it would be roughly that.
Right.
25K. As far as the actual work, we have a rough estimation from the South Canal as well, $1 million to $1.5 million.
Right.
But I was always under the assumption that would come out of our infrastructure reserve,
Right.
because this is something that's gonna have a life of much longer than.
Sure. And that, David, is really something to be proposed in the budget for 2025, the process to follow. Because I think the ownership issues can be cleared up during that period. Sure. So,
Right, and it is appropriate to take it out of the reserve fund and the infrastructure, but we're going to have to look hard and long at increasing our contribution to that to be able to keep it funded.
well, absolutely, and that another big feature, I think, is the roadways. We need to make a decision about how do we want to approach these roadways. And this sort of segues to my next topic that I wanted to bring up that's not really on the agenda. We I just emailed it to everybody. I only have a few copies here, but we have just gotten our draft 2023 audit report. And I want to give a couple. I don't want to go over this. It's 35 pages long. I don't want to slide through this with everybody. It's lunchtime and it would put everyone to sleep. There is a section of it, however, that does talk about the funding of the reserves. And I really want, as you go through this, to pay particular attention to those items that are being talked about, because the reserves are a guesstimate. So what our auditor is suggesting is we might want to consider having a formal sort of, infrastructure engineering firm come in, much the same as we're getting with the inspections for the buildings, to do, a reserve study for our roadways, our buildings, etc. So that again will take some funding to get somebody in to actually do a reserve study for us. again, that's another of the items that I would like to see on our budget for next year and start the process of getting a reserve study so that we know whether we're funding appropriately or not. I mean, I think 2025 should be more of a, status quo with our expenses and outputs and whatnot. And start looking at the future, look at what do we have? Because we're in a very enviable position of having a fairly well-funded reserve. Not a lot, I had a meeting, we're looking. Our previous accounting firm we've looked at several, our previous accounting firm is not available to us at the moment, so Sebastian's not gonna be able to come back with us. I have interviewed someone else, I'm just waiting to see if they are amenable to come work with us. It's someone that used to do our audits. And they actually were the source of us having it changed to Guy Strom. They work well with Guy, they're in the same building. And Mike used to do our bookkeeping and accounting, so I'm looking to have that firm come in. As an accounting.
Remember what he said at that meeting? He said, most associations deal with, these are people dealing with loans and
Loans,
you
yeah.
guys have a healthy reserve.
Right, so we're in a very good position. I wanna be sure that we stay in that position and that we, make the most of it. That's really. And of course, my big thing is I want our cash utilization program to really take off by the end of this year and into next year, and I want a budget for it. So that's, my own personal goal, sort of, is to get that money, to move it to a more productive place, with the help of advisors that know what they're doing. And have a plan and give it to the delegate assembly and say, here, this is what we want to do. So all that being said, here's a few copies if you want. I don't know if anyone.
Joanne, can I just bring up
Sure.
something related to reserves? So we learned at the pre-insurance meeting that we need to think about reserves for hurricane deductibles. Does UCO have a hurricane deductible for our properties that we should be thinking
Yes.
about?
Sure.
Yeah.
So should we have a line item for that?
It's as an insurance reserve, separate line item. We have a windstorm reserve.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is for the
That's,
deductible.
yeah, that's what
okay.
they call her
Perfect.
reserve,
And it says emergency and hurricane cleanup,
right,
so that includes the
that's part of it,
deductible.
yeah.
Okay.
What's that number?
Insurance.
$100,000.
It was 75 the last song, that's what we paid.
Good.
But
Thank you.
at any rate. I urge this committee to really carefully look at this, and I, in my email, I was adamant about do not distribute this. It is not for distribution, it's for your review, it has not been approved. We have an officers meeting tomorrow, which I will discuss it with the officers. And prior to next week's delegate assembly, I would like to sign off on it and present it to the delegate assembly as approved. If I can maneuver that by then, so I have until Wednesday to get Carolyn the final document, so I'm gonna have to approve it in the next day or two. Get it to Guy to get the finished product out. So that's any comments, that's why I said I'm giving you homework. Any comments, I absolutely need to have them by Friday. By 3 o'clock Friday. So that on Monday, I can hopefully get Guy. Sign off all the paperwork and get the finished product to him. If you have comments, if there's questions, if you think that this is wrong in some way, send me an email.
So Joanne, I'm happy to look through it if you want to email
I
me a
emailed
copy.
it, I did.
Okay.
I think it went to probably Rexat.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yeah, everyone on this committee got a copy and I absolutely invite. Anything that you feel you need, do you want? I sent it to you.
Yeah, I got it,
think it's
Joanne.
two of them.
Thank you.
Are there any?
That's the draft,
Oh, okay.
the draft, yeah.
Are there any particular, you mentioned several pages earlier, are there any particular sections?
You sort of have to page through it. You will see a page about funding future reserves. It's discussed in there.
Okay.
Now. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time going through, because it, like I said, it's a 30-some page document and it is very dry. If you've ever read every word of an audit document, very repetitious. But we got a very good report with some good comments and good suggestions. Now, the next thing I want is the financial report. This is, again, a preliminary report. And do not take these numbers seriously, because we have just transitioned from, and those of you that are tech savvy will know, and maybe everyone will understand. We used to have what's called desktop version of QuickBooks, which comes on a CD and you load the CD on your PC, and then you have sharing from the outside. I hate those programs, those desktop-based programs, because they always have to be updated. They expose you to dial in when you have to. So we've converted to a secure, server-based, online program. It was not an easy transition. Apparently, I'm not the only one complaining about how poorly QuickBooks and Intuit did with their transition from desktop to online. Chris is slogging through getting these numbers updated, so by delegate assembly, we will distribute a fully accurate report, but the format's a little different. The first thing I'm gonna tell him is I don't wanna see this again, because it's too small for our old eyes. And I'm an old Excel spreadsheet person. I like lines. I don't wanna have to get my ruler out to go through this. So I want lines and I want bigger, and of course I want accurate. But I just wanted to let you know that we are changing. There is a different format that you'll see. If there's something as you look through this, and again, that's homework. You don't need to sit here, I don't intend for these meetings to be item by item budget meetings, to slog through. I want to discuss what you guys want to discuss now, so. That was my spiel for the meeting.
So is your QuickBook conversion, is it good now? Everybody can log in, that's going to log in to the QuickBook.
Everything, yeah, in other words, I can,
Yeah.
Chris can, yeah, and.
As I know, we had a thousand times with it when we transferred over.
Yeah, it's hard,
Yeah, it is.
and he's still learning,
Yeah.
and, we're gonna give him time to get it done. But it's worth it,
Yeah.
it's worth it for security reasons. And just to not have to worry about getting that CD and the updates and we're always gonna be up to date, like, it's a silly thing, but like payroll tax rates, and they change every year. So you gotta update your software all the time. But it's done, and we're there. Any new business, anything that you would like to bring to the committee, anybody? David, Paulette?
Nope.
No, I think you're covering it really well. I really applaud you for focusing in on reserves, that I think it's one of the most important things for our committee to be prepared.
Absolutely, and we have a lot coming down the pike. I know, you're in a building that's gonna be hit with having to really look at your reserves. Anybody in the 4-story buildings, obviously, we want to try and make sure we're not making their life even more miserable, But I see it coming down. I see, once that's done, I see 25, 26 hearing from the government saying, well, now the 2-story buildings have to be looked at. And, I want us to be in the best position we can be. So, thank you. Otherwise, nothing, anybody? I look forward to hearing from everyone about the audit, especially the audit, and any input you have about format and changes that you might want to see to the structure of this report for the budget. An actual comparison, because that's going forward, I want to make sure that we never miss sending it to the delegates. That's, I just, that was one thing about the last few years that I really objected to. Was that not every single month did we get a report out? We have to. I think it's just critical that we always tell people what we're doing with their money.
What email do you use now? Is it email,
Treasurer one,
treasure one, okay, not, okay.
I have three of them. I use my own personal, I use CVTV when it's related to, you know, any of the communication stuff. And then Treasurer one for all things treasurer.
Okay.
So you can get me on any channel. All right, I will,
And move we adjourn.
okay, thanks, I Richard, there we go.
Bye, everybody.
Very nice, hey, have a nice.
Bye, thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye now, have a good 4th of July, everyone.